Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
You don't have to be an economist, a business owner, or even in the workforce to get a sense that commercial activity and life in general is robust and the economy is good here in the Carolinas. Welcome back to the most widely watched source of Carolina business and public policy. I'm Chris William, and a question may be, we know things are good, but have all aspects of business returned? And what about the region's single largest industry, tourism? In a moment, the heads of Visit North Carolina and the South Carolina Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. Stay with us.
Major funding also by Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review features Wit Tuttell, Executive Director of Visit North Carolina, and Duane Parrish, Director of the South Carolina Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department. Now, here's Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program. Talking about tourism and hospitality in the Carolinas is like not talking about golf in the Carolinas. You can't not talk about it. Duane, Wit, good to have you both here. Welcome. You know, so here we are, just closing out the busiest season of the year for tourism. Duane, how did it stack up year over year? How did it look?
Well, it appears that 2015 will be our third consecutive record year. Low gas prices have really made a big difference. Over 80% of the people come into South Carolina come by car. So that's made a big difference in it. A lot of the great things we have throughout the state, our geography, our proximity from the mountains to the beaches, the great golf courses you just mentioned, all those things have led to, quite frankly, our third record year in a row. 2013 was the year we caught up from the recession, or we sort of got back to where we were, and then 14 was a record year. Then 15, it appears, will be a record year as well.
Well, how did North Carolina stack up?
Same with us. We're coming off records. We're going to beat last year. Last year we had a U.S. Open helping us out. That has a huge impact when it comes to a state. We're going to beat it this year, even despite some issues this summer on the beaches. But it's looking really strong.
Yeah. So now, thanks for that. You set that up for you. I'm going to ask about sharks. Certainly sharks are a novelty unless you get bit by a shark, and it's a serious thing. And I don't want to make light of it. But how much did sharks affect tourism? Did it really?
Yeah. For us, it wasn't the shark frenzy. It was a media frenzy around it. That's what impacts us. But it wasn't that bad. We'll see some, but we talk to a lot of people and we try to say, these things are tragic, but they're really rare. I mean, it's a statistical anomaly. And what happens, and more people got killed and injured by fireworks in North Carolina than by sharks this year. So it's a matter of getting the conversation back down and calm people down. But we didn't see a really huge impact out of it. I think we're still going to have a positive year on the coast.
Yeah. Any blowover in South Carolina around that?
No, not really. We just told everybody they were in North Carolina, and so we had.
That's when they combine us. That's when they combine us when it comes to sharks.
Yeah, they do this to the Carolina coast. But no, it really had very little impact. And Wit's exactly right. Statistically, you're much greater chances of other bad things happening to you than sharks. It's just the sensationalism of it.
Well, and again, not to be flippant, but what do you want? You want sharks, or do you want the flag issue? In South Carolina, I think it was a good year in South Carolina. The Confederate flag issue certainly has found some finality to it. When you look at that, Duane, how much did that help the tourism? Did it impact it more than the social aspect of the flag?
You know, at the time it happened, and it's awful tragedy. You know, I really was worried about, just purely from a tourism standpoint, was worried about the brand of South Carolina and the brand of Charleston. As we sit here today, I think the brands have come out of that in a really good position, from a couple of perspectives. One, you know, I think people compared it to Ferguson. They compared it to Baltimore. They waited for the riots. To the person in Kansas who saw 1,000 people holding the hands over the bridge, the Ravenel Bridge in Charleston, and thought, oh wow, they've had this awful tragedy happen, and of all races they're standing together. And I think I want to go hang out with those people. So at the end of it, while an awful, terrible tragedy, at the end of it, it probably showed South Carolina in a true sense to the rest of the country that it hasn't been seen before.
Did that surprise you, the reaction from family, from the community in Charleston?
Having lived in Charleston, not really. I think the family reaction was really just above and beyond incredible. They showed their forgiveness to the killer right away, and I think that spoke volumes about a lot of what the root core and the culture of Charleston is, and who they are. And Charleston really showed, to be, I think, a representative for the rest of the country of what unification really is.
Just wrap up the overall look year over year. What percentage was North Carolina up year over year in tourism?
We're up about 5.4%, so we're really excited about that. Great numbers for us, and it's a record season, record visitation, record spending.
Was there any impact with the unseasonably hot weather? Did that make a difference one way or another? And this is, by the way, for both of you all, because it was so stinking hot in so many places.
Yeah, I think that, I think in some ways that helps. People want to get out, particularly with us where you can go to the beach or the mountains to escape that heat. So it's really beneficial for us.
Yeah, same thing, Duane.
Yeah, in some respects, the hotter it gets, the more they want to go to the beach.
Yeah, okay. Well, no surprise there. Duane, just a one-off, South Carolina has had a debate about raising the gas tax. One of the great things in the Palmetto State is if you live in the Tar Heel State, is you can drive south to get your gas and then come back. Would you expect that to change? And will the governor, Nikki Haley, has clearly said that she's sticking by her guns, does not want to raise the gas tax. Would there be enough votes in the House to get that gas tax raised? And what do you think the odds that the gas tax will increase and come back to what maybe North Carolina?
I think they will, and she's come out with a plan that was a three-part plan, one part of which was to be able to raise gas taxes, restructure DOT, raise gas taxes, and essentially make where it's not a short-term fix, which is what happened last year. They allocated about $400 million, which is a one-year fix. Our DOT really needs about $400 million every year to not only fix the existing roads, but plan for expansion as well. Yes, I mean, the good news for us is we're in a position now, as you just mentioned, you drive across the border, we're 10 to 15 cents less. So if we have a 10 cent per gallon increase, it really doesn't affect that much from a competitive standpoint. When they cross the border, whether it's with North Carolina or Georgia, we're in a good position there. Particularly as gas prices are low now, I don't think the impact will be felt very much.
So you wouldn't see that as a headwind on tourism?
No, I don't think, and I don't know that people from other states necessarily look at the condition of the roads. I think if you don't fix them, long term, people hit a pothole and get their car fixed and they have a bad experience, or they get clogged up on I-95. Yes, that can have an impact, but I think from a planning standpoint, it doesn't affect. I think from a return standpoint, it can have an impact, and it's something we need to address, obviously, as a state.
To Duane's point, Wit, the North Carolina General Assembly struggles with a transportation plan. The governor has one, the House has one, the Senate has one. I mean, they're all certainly progressive with a small p, but how punitive is the lack of transportation funding and vision? That's not fair to say, because they all have a vision. But how punitive is transportation right now to tourism?
Well, right now I think it's not punitive, but it can be, and I think that's what we're looking at is the future, because we've got the people coming. We've done that. We've marketed and we have people coming here. Now, when they come, if that experience is 4 hours in traffic trying to get to the beach, they may not come back, or even worse, they'll tell their friends, this was terrible. So we're worried about the future. It's that we need to fix it now before it gets to the point where it's punitive.
Is it at a tipping point? And this is for both of y'all. You think the issue?
In some areas we are, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Duane?
Same here. We have some areas that needs to be addressed very soon.
And I don't mean just fixing potholes on some
Right.
of the secondary
Road
roads,
expansion.
I-26, I-95, the lack of entrance and egress down to the Grand Strand. I'm still not sure how the Palmetto State has gone all of these decades without having a better transportation mode.
Well, the Grand Strand at Myrtle Beach is the largest destination in the country without an interstate to it, and that needs to be addressed, obviously. It's difficult now. Myrtle Beach has locally made some changes that have helped, particularly with local ingress and egress, but getting into the Grand Strand is still a difficult proposition, and it's something that, that the state needs to address and could have a long-term impact if it's not fixed soon.
What do you think the growth along the Grand Strand and down to the Low Country would be if there was access on the northeast part of the state?
Oh, it'd certainly help. I mean, because people would feed down through, they'd come with I-73, come into the Grand Strand, take Highway 17 down towards Charleston. I think it could grow not only grow tourism, but also provide quite frankly, a faster access in the case of emergency of a hurricane.
Yeah. Let's talk about technology for a minute. And it's been, certainly the media's covered this, but you got three different kind of catalysts, if you will. You got Airbnb, you've got Uber, and then you've got VRBO that's been around for a while. You've got three disruptive technologies, I might say, that have really made it a lot easier to go to a place, to find your lodging, to get some transportation. How disruptive has that been for your constituents, and how do you talk about it? And you don't have to give up confidences, but how do you talk about it behind closed doors in some of your association and your constituent meetings? Anyone?
Well, for us, it's a disruptive technology, but it's a positive technology in the long run for tourism because you're getting people to go out and getting people to stay. And I don't really think it's eating away at the hotel market. It's adding a new market to people, and these are people that are experiencing things in different ways. Where I think it's huge for us in North Carolina is in rural areas. There are rural areas where people want to go and be visitors, but we can't build hotel product there. They're not going to get a 150-room hotel in a tiny little town in the mountains of North Carolina. But if we can get Airbnb, VBRO in there and get them to open up some inventory, people can stay. And if they stay that night, every night they stay is bigger impact on that community. Mm-hmm. So that helps. We just got to get them playing along.
Yeah, exactly. Whit's exactly right. I think it does two things. It brings some product that may not be able for a hotel to be able to build in that particular area, particularly the rural areas, what we call undiscovered South Carolina. The other thing it does is it gives the ability for an authentic experience and a unique experience. I mean, I think that's as much the attraction as it is. It's just something different from your average hotel. The hoteliers don't mind the additional inventory. I think it's many of, in particular in our state, they don't pay the sales and accommodation taxes that the hotels do and don't collect that. Therefore, the hotels are already at a 10 to 14% disadvantage from a pricing standpoint. Plus, some of that money is used to market the destination that those Airbnb locations benefit from. So I think if we can get Airbnb, and I think this issue is going to come up in our legislative session next year, is just getting them to pay those appropriate taxes. So it's a level playing field for everyone.
Is that the same issue when you talk about them playing along?
Oh, exactly. In North Carolina, we're one of the first states that's actually got an agreement with Airbnb where we're collecting state tax, sales tax from them, and they're collecting occupancy tax from the different counties and municipalities where it's set. So I think once that happens, the industry is going to feel like, hey, they're playing, they're engaged in that because we're spending money helping them, promoting the destinations where they have products. So it's only fair that they kick in and help the communities where they're impacted.
Sorry, Whit, if you could figure out the kind of the fiscal calculus with things like Airbnb, would they play along? Do they loosen up their inventory? Do they allow that kind of access, or are they pretty stingy with it still?
Well, Airbnb is playing with us. They've set this, and they're playing with Oregon, and there are other states where they'll join in soon. In fact, we were just at a conference where we spoke with their head of global strategy. They want to play along. I think they know that's the way to do it. It's just a matter of making it work mechanically.
If you can work out the numbers, do you think that they'll play along?
I think they will. They're the largest provider of rooms in the United States. More so than they have more inventory than the Marriott, Hilton combined, and so they're already a player. It's just a matter of getting them to play by the same rules that the hotels and everyone else does. And quite frankly, they'll benefit at the end of the day because of that collection of the accommodation taxes will help market them as well.
And I know there's been an agreement with Uber. Does Uber want to play by the same rules? Because you talk to the taxi cab drivers, and no, they don't. But that's again a disruptive technology.
It is.
Duane, is Uber a good thing for South Carolina?
Yes, I think it's a very good thing for South Carolina and everywhere, and for a couple of reasons. One, Uber is coming, whether you want it to or not. So the better governments figure out how to embrace that, whatever the outcome may be, you're in a better position than trying to fight it. It's like the internet; it's going to come. Right. You remember 15 years ago, some people were skeptical of it. I mean, Uber is there, the rideshare, Lyft, Airbnb, HomeAway, all those, like you pointed out, are disruptive technologies. But governments just need to figure out how to embrace that and make it part of the mix, because at the end of the day, we all benefit from it.
Yeah, you got a different take on that.
And I think most people want the business to be fair. So, you know, the taxi people, they want the Uber to play the way they have to play. And so a lot of it is just working the regulation out. You know, it takes time for regulation to catch up with technology, because technology is always running out ahead. And I think that'll happen, and we'll be better for it. Tourism will certainly be better for all those.
You know, I've got to ask you this, and you might want to explain this a little bit. When we talk about technology, Periscope is a new app you can get on your phone. I'm infatuated with it because I think it's kind of a cool, you're basically live streaming to all of your followers on Twitter, if you will. Visit NC has been one of the first adopters of Periscope. How has that worked, and how do you use it, and what does it do for your tourism number?
Yeah, well, it's great, and the way it works is basically as you described it. We can go live stream something, and it's interesting because once again, it's a technology you can either be afraid of or you can embrace. So we used it. One of the first times ever was for Merlefest, great, Americana Music Festival in North Carolina. We wanted to promote it. Well, some people could be afraid, and they say, "Oh no, if you're going to show video of Merlefest, why would I go to Merlefest?" Well, we didn't. What we did was we went behind the scenes with it. We shot video with the Avent brothers. We talked to them. We did behind the scenes interviews. And sure, we showed some of the concert footage, but we put the package together of what it meant. We also took it across the state, and we showed some small venues where people were playing mountain music jam sessions. We went to the east where there was the African American Music Trail and the birthplace of some of these things. And it's a great way to show things. You know, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth 1,000,000. You know, you can put people there. And what we do with that is you try and build engagement. People see that, they follow along, they want to join, they talk about it to their friends, and it's advertising.
So anybody with a smartphone can be a viewer of it, right? So can you measure the eyeballs, and what kind of impact did it have?
Yeah, now we measure the eyeballs, and we measure who they talk to, what they talk to. So you talk about impressions and engagement. You can get up to 30 million impressions on something like that. So we've been really exciting. I mean, we've had some that have had 4,000 listeners. We've had some that have had 20,000 listeners. So it really depends.
Is it brand building, or is it driving sales?
It's a little, I'd say it's more brand building than anything. I mean, I think it drives that brand, which will eventually drive sales. You know, it's hard for us to drive a brand as a state, because we're not a single entity, but when we can use these things to talk about all the advantages the state has, I think that helps us.
You're nodding over there, Duane. Would you use something like that? Would you use a technology like that?
Sure. We always look at any new and upcoming technology. If you think about the growth of Instagram and Twitter, and of course, obviously Facebook has been around for a while, but those things, social media, if you're not on the edge of that, you're left behind. I mean, it's the old lead follow, get out of the way. And so I think you have to look at those things, particularly as the visitor goes there and the millennials become of age and the millennials have money to travel, because that's where they are. They're on their cell phone 24/7. And so if you're not connecting to them, they're going to miss your message.
Yeah.
So you guys are talking about brand messaging, international markets. This is something, and I just learned right before taping here, and it's nice to see both states are working together instead of always at odds, and not necessarily at odds, but how is North and South Carolina working together on international marketing?
Well, we've teamed up. What we realized was that the international visitors, the first trip, they're going to the big boys. They're going to New York, they're going to Vegas, they're going to Orlando.
Not a surprise, right?
Yeah, they're not coming here. But it doesn't make sense for me to go and try and pitch North Carolina to Europeans alone. So we've got this great regional organization called Travel South. It's 10 southern states. We work together. And so we've, as the Carolinas, have gone together. We're going to go to the UK and Ireland in next month. We go together and we pitch to come and visit the American South. Because the international visitor is going to come for a couple of weeks. They're not just coming for a couple of days. So they really want that trip, and we've followed it. The beauty now is we have the technology. We can see where those people are, what the patterns they're taking on their visits. So we've decided, why fight with each other on the international side? Let's work together to get more people coming to the South.
Yeah, they're looking for that unique experience in the South. You know, the culture, the history, the architecture, the food, the music. And together we provide those things, and quite frankly, you know, visitors really don't care about borders. You know, and Wit has obviously the assets of the mountains and the international airport. We have the beaches and golf in South Carolina. You combine all that to the European traveler who, you know, who wants all of that and experience the South. And we try to, you know, we try to hit them, and quite frankly, pulling the money together between the two states allows us to go further and have a deeper reach into the market, European markets.
Do you find that, you know, one of the, we've asked this question over and over the last couple decades, and it's really about the political will and those in North and South Carolina that really don't see, you know, it's the political division between the two states that keeps them from working closer together. Bobby Hitt, Secretary of Commerce, and John Skvarla, Secretary of Commerce in North Carolina, both have talked about working closer together. Do you find that those in your respective states are looking, or at least watching, the association more closely in the international markets that you're working together on?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's easier for us to work together because a visitor, they're going to go to North Carolina and South Carolina. They're probably going to go to Georgia as well. So we can share them, we can work together. That company is going to come and put the factory in one spot or the other. That's where it gets
a little more competitive.
It's a little dicey. I've heard that once or twice.
But
a couple
it makes
minutes.
sense.
A couple minutes left on the program, and I want to talk about schools. So education, educators will say it's the tourism lobby that keeps us from being able to have year-round schools. Is there any truth in that?
There's some truth in that. You know, from the tourism perspective, look at it. I mean, there are a lot of issues, particularly with the beach involved. The ability for teenagers to get lifeguard jobs. You know, when I went to school, we got out May 31st, and then we started back the Tuesday after Labor Day. They have a 180-day requirement. Now today there are a lot more days off in between those two holidays that they take. But what's happened is they start earlier and earlier, and many of them start now the first week of August. In South Carolina, they passed legislation a few years back. They can't start before the third Monday of August. So it still can start before Labor Day, but at least there was some control, because some of the schools have started back even further. Some educators would tell you that the student will lose. You know, they lose that. If you do year-round school, they lose the memory of what they learned. Of course, my point is, if they lose it that fast, they really didn't learn it. So I think there's an opportunity there. I think from a job standpoint, and I think too from a tourism standpoint, there's that time of the vacation that people want to be together. You know, Project Time Off is a project by the U.S. Travel Association that shows that the average American gives up 7 days a year of vacation time. And I think the school start date has negatively impacted that. They've crunched that summertime window even smaller, and so they can't. And so that's why I think that's happening, and that's hurting productivity at work. That's hurting the travel industry, and quite frankly, more time with the family. I think all those things go together.
Yeah, and you know, the industry is really more worried about the creeping into the summer rather than the year-round schools. It's the start date, because when you cut that into that summer and then you let the kids out earlier in the year, they're not traveling then. So kids are losing the opportunity to get jobs. And families, I think, don't like it either, because it messes up with their summer season. So it's not so much the year-round, it's the creeping the earlier start date up. And I think a lot of people will say, well, we need more time in school for the kids. But, you know, we think in that 180 days, in the window they have now, they can find those educational hours in there.
You know, both superintendents of education, Molly Spearman and June Atkinson, were here just a few weeks ago talking about, we touched a little bit on this, and one of the workarounds that I call it, that the school systems are doing now, is while they're not making a specific commitment in mandatory school, they are making it more of a camp environment that includes academic, that includes more of a social aspect, that is getting the kids back in the classroom. So my point is this to either one of you, and we've got about a minute left. Have you seen some creep in, the term you use, have you seen some creep in education that is keeping kids from traveling or families from traveling? Has it shown up yet in your numbers? Are you watching for it?
I haven't seen any of that.
Indication?
No, I haven't seen any of that. And quite frankly, the vacation provides an educational component. When you come to state parks and our interpretive rangers take kids on a trail and show them about things, I mean, there are education components of the vacation in many aspects. And I think sometimes the educators lose sight of that part of the summer vacation.
That's going to be the last word, and I know you're really disappointed that you can't weigh in on that anymore, but thanks, gentlemen, for being on the program. Congratulations on some good business this year. I know it benefits everyone. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching our program. If you have any questions or comments, we hope you'll take the time to do it. Go to carolinabusinessreview.org. I know it's a little clumsy, but if you will take the time, carolinabusinessreview.org, make your comments and your questions about upcoming program. Until next week, I'm Chris William. We hope your business is good, your summer's been great, and here comes school, so watch out. Until next week, good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton, operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.org.